San Diego Padres baseball coming up on 97.3 The Fan and the Padres Radio Network. Today the Padres take on the Chicago Cubs in the second game of a three-game series. Our starting pitching matchup for the Cubs, left-hander Shota Imanaga, and for the Padres, right-hander Randy Vasquez. Hi again, everyone. Sam Levitt here inside our San Diego studios. First pitch coming up at 4:40 at Wrigley Field in Chicago. Coming up in the next 50 minutes, we'll hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. We'll also hear from Padres president of baseball operations and general manager A.J. Preller, and much, much more to come as we get ready for Game 2 in this three-game set. But first, let's set the table, brought to you by Fraser Farms Market. Set your table with the highest quality of natural and organic products from Fraser Farms Market, a San Diego original since 1971, with 3 locations, La Mesa Vista and Oceanside. Padres enter today with a record of 19-19. Padres have won 5 of their last 6 games. An opportunity today to secure a winning 6-game road trip, a third consecutive series win as well. Padres now 3-1 against the Cubs this season. Meanwhile, the Cubs come in 21-15. Cubs are just 5-6 in their last 11 games. Padres facing Japanese left-hander Shota Imanaga today. He has been terrific so far in his early major league career. Imanaga 5-0 with an 0.78 ERA in 6 starts so far this season. We'll have much more on him coming up later. Before we turn our full attention to today's game, let's take a look at what was a great game last night in Chicago.
How did the Padres fare in their last game? Let's take a look back with our Padres Rewind. Presented by Hamul Casino. With thrilling slots and tables and all the best rewards, Hamul Casino has all the fun you're looking for. Hamul Casino. Fun above all else.
Yu Darvish tossed 5 scoreless innings to begin his night. We had a scoreless game going to the 6th inning, but then the Padres rallied. Fernando Tatis Jr. hit a bloop single. Jake Cronenworth hit an infield single, then a double steal. That put runners on second and third with nobody out for Jerks and Profar.
Got a lot of ways to do something productive here. Profar hitting .357 with runners in scoring position. Grounds this one up the middle into center to base hit. Fernando has scored. Cronenworth's on his way. Armstrong's throw the tag, not in time. 2-run single, Jerks and Profar, and the Padres have the first runs of the night.
Padres weren't done. Xander Bogaerts then singled on a hit and run. Profar went to third base. There was still nobody out for Donovan Solano.
Here's the 1-1 pitch. Bogaerts runs and a line drive into center field and a base hit. Warner was going to cover the bag, couldn't reach it. Profar will come in and score, and the Padres get another as the running game continues to assist the hitting game here in the 6th inning.
Ha-Sung Kim walked. That loaded the bases for Luis Campusano.
Bases loaded, nobody down. 3-0 Padres. First pitch to Campusano, rocketed down the right field line. That's going to go to the corner. That's going to clear the bases. Bogaerts has scored. Solano has scored. Kim is on his way. He will score a 3-run double for Campusano, and now a 6-0 Padre lead.
Padres had 6 runs on 6 hits in a span of 7 batters. Cubs got some back, though. Christopher Morel hit a 2-run home run against Yuki Matsui to make it 6-2. In the 7th inning, Yan Gomes hit a solo home run against Enyel De Los Santos to make it 6-3. Padres still led 6-3. Going to the 8th inning, the Cubs had the bases loaded with nobody out, the go-ahead run at the plate. But then Jeremiah Estrada got a strikeout. Mike Shildt went to Robert Suarez. He struck out Yan Gomes for out number 2. He popped up Nico Horner to get out of the jam. Padres still led 6-3 going bottom 9. Robert Suarez back to work looking for a 5-out save. Suarez made it look easy.
Right-handed batter. First pitch swinging in the air to deep right center. Long run Merrill. He gets there on the track to make the catch, and the ball game is over. Robert Suarez, for the 2nd time this year, collects a 5-out save, and the Padres take Game 1 at Wrigley by a final of 6-3.
5 up, 5 down, and Robert Suarez, second 5-out save of the season. He's now 11 for 11 in save opportunities this year. Final score at Wrigley last night, the Padres 6 and the Cubs 3. And now the Padres going for a second consecutive win on the north side of Chicago. Let's go to the north side and check in with Jesse Ackler.
Let's go inside the Padres broadcast booth for a deep dive on today's matchup from Jesse Agler in our Padres game preview on the Padres Radio Network.
We go to historic Wrigley Field. We're joined by Jesse Agler as we get ready for first pitch coming up at 4:40 in Chicago. Jesse, as always, appreciate the time. Let's start with the weather today in Chicago. I know the tarp was on the field a little bit earlier, a tornado watch of sorts in the area today. What can you tell us about what the weather's been like today and maybe what we can expect for tonight?
Yes, it is very Midwestern in the spring. Which means that we had big thunderstorms earlier. We do have the tornado warning. We also currently have very bright blue skies. It's perfect right now. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. Looks like most of the rain has moved off. It's going to go attempt to stay afloat over Lake Michigan, if you will. Can certainly see some storm clouds kind of in the distance looking out that direction here from our perch. Above the upper deck at Wrigley. But in terms of baseball weather, we should be good to go. The flags are currently blowing straight in once again. And so it could be a very similar kind of night to last night in terms of what happens to balls in the air. But no concerns weather-wise here for the rest of the night, but definitely had some pretty good weather here earlier today.
All right, good news to hear. And, yeah, that weather in the Midwest, it can be a little wacky at times, so hopefully stays that way throughout the course of this evening. Let's talk about the guy on the mound today for the Cubs, left-hander Shota Imanaga. He has been terrific in the early part of his major league career. I'm going to do a deep dive a little bit later on him. But just in your research, Jesse, and I suppose talking to people today around the ballpark, what sense do you get about Imanaga and what he's done so far this year?
I mean, what he's done has been incredible. I'm sure you've gone over the basics, but if anybody missed it, 6 starts, you go 5-0 with an 0.78 ERA. He's now leading baseball with that earned run average. And, I mean, they knew he was going to be good, or they thought he was going to be good when they signed him back in January. But obviously there's no way they could have anticipated him being this good. And to me, the most kind of fascinating thing that I've heard about him so far, talking to people around Wrigley Field today, because, if you look at his stuff, right, it's a 92-mile-an-hour fastball and a splitter.
Right.
That's pretty much what it is. He throws a sweeper and a curveball as well, but it's predominantly the fastball and the splitter. And for a guy, and I know he can reach 95, 96, but averaging 92 on the fastball, and nobody seems to be able to touch it. So, I wanted to understand that best I could. And the most fascinating thing I heard is he is pitching almost completely differently than he did in Japan.
Interesting.
He spent 8 seasons in Japan, and he was mostly kind of like an outside corner, inside corner guy with the fastball. It was, very much spotted up to both sides of the plate. And here, he's been living at the top of the zone. There's a couple reasons for that. One, the style of hitting here is different, and that plays a lot better here than it would have there. Also, the size and shape of the strike zone, a little bit different here than it is in Japan. It kind of goes up higher in Major League Baseball than it does in Japan. So he's been able to get called strikes at the top of the zone. And when the Cubs and their staff kind of looked at all the metrics for the fastball, and they took into account the way a lot of Major League hitters approach at bats these days, they said, all right, you can go up here. And that was something he didn't really do much of in Japan, but it's been the fastball up. He gets a lot of takes. He gets a lot of weak contact and pop-ups on it. And then it's the splitter down. And, of course, the splitter is just a devastating offering. And as you would imagine, it looks an awful lot like the fastball to the hitter until it doesn't, at which point it sort of dives into the dirt and you spin yourself into the ground. So I'm really excited to see him in person for the first time. He's developed almost a legendary kind of status here at the beginning points of his major league career. And look, from a Padre perspective, how fun is it to be one of these hitters tonight, and you're able to say to yourself or think to yourself, hey, we could be the team to finally knock this guy down, for the first time in his major league career. And I'm sure that's very much the mentality down there.
Yeah, a lot of good insight there, Jesse, on Imanaga. And we'll talk more about him a little bit later in our pregame coverage. But you're right, that fastball, it has this rise to it that is really unique and certainly has been very effective so far this season. Quickly, Jesse, just on Randy Vasquez on the other side of this pitching matchup here today. Padres used a number of relievers yesterday. They had to use some guys on Sunday as well in Arizona. It seems pretty important that they at least get a little bit of length out of Randy Vasquez here today.
I mean, that is certainly the ideal situation. But, the reality will be what the reality will be. And, I don't think they're going to leave him out there to die on the vine or anything like that. So, yes, if you can get 4 innings out of Randy Vasquez, you probably shoot off a couple of fireworks down in that dugout. You're not asking him for too much, but you got to get something. Brito, as you said, worked on Sunday. He threw 42 pitches over 3 innings. So you can't necessarily count on him to be able to piggyback the way you did maybe a couple of other times earlier this year. The name for me to keep in mind would be Adrian Morejon. He last worked 3 days ago. So, not necessarily a 3-inning thing necessarily out of the bullpen for him, but maybe you could get some length out of Adrian. My guess would be, and I didn't talk to anybody about this, just my guess, he'd be the guy, that they called upon to try and get at least a little bit of length in the middle of the game. And then obviously you kind of take it as it comes. You see what the score is, you see what the situation is, and you go from there. But you're right. I mean, they kind of really went for it last night using all those guys, and I think that was clearly the right decision, having the lead, wanting to win that game, knowing you've got Imanaga here tonight. So, it'll be very interesting to see how they try and piece it together. And, of course, if Randy Vasquez can go 4 or 5 innings, obviously that makes things a lot more simple.
Yeah, that'd be great. Jesse, as always, appreciate the time. Very, very good stuff. We'll talk to you and Tony coming up at 4:30 here in San Diego. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Sam.
All right, that is Jesse Agler joining us here on the Padres Radio Network as we get ready for today's game. Again, we'll go out to Jesse and Tony at 4:30. First pitch at 4:40. Randy Vasquez on the mound for the Padres. Left-hander Shota Imanaga, the rookie out of Japan, on the mound for the Cubs. And we're going to do a lot of talking today about Imanaga, and we often don't do... we certainly talk about the opposing starting pitcher quite a bit here on the pregame coverage, but we're going to dive even deeper into Imanaga today because, number one, he's been that good, and number two, he's just unique in the way he pitches, and it's been very, very effective so far. That is the big storyline in today's game. Imanaga facing the Padres for the very first time and seeing how the Padres fare against this left-hander. When we come back on the Padres Radio Network, we'll hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. We'll also have the injury update on Joe Musgrove from A.J. Preller. He was on the morning show earlier today. And a little bit later, speaking of Imanaga, I'll be joined by Lance Brodzowski, who does a terrific job breaking down pitching, very analytical. He works for Marquee Sports Network, the TV network of the Chicago Cubs. We'll check in with him and much, much more to come as we get ready for first pitch on this Tuesday. Our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show continues after this on the Padres Radio Network.
Thanks for listening to the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show. Visit EcoWaterSoCal.com for a free water test and consultation. Your water should be perfect.
You've waited all year for baseball, and it's finally here. Now, get ready for Major League winning when you join the most generous Players Club in Southern California at Valley View Casino and Hotel. Join and receive over $100 in free instant offers to enjoy at San Diego's favorite casino. No strings attached. Signing up for the Players Club is always quick, easy, and free. So visit valleyviewcasino.com to learn more today.
Homeowners, for a limited time, Comfort Pros Heating, Air, and Plumbing is offering a $29 AC tune-up or drain clearing to unclog any drain with an accessible clean-out. Only $29 for an AC tune-up or drain clearing. Visit ComfortBros.com. That's ComfortBros.com.
The San Diego County Bar Association offers a public service to assess your need for a lawyer. You will receive 3 references to qualified attorneys, each of whom will provide you with 30 minutes of legal consultation without charge. Visit needalawyersanddiego.com to learn more.
TimberTech is the #1 premium composite decking brand. It's got the beauty of real wood without all the maintenance. To get free samples or find a local contractor, visit TimberTech.com. TimberTech, everything wood should be.
Transform your home with the trusted expertise of Brand Stoner Painting. Like our hometown baseball team's commitment to excellence, we bring the same dedication to painting your home. Whether it's a fresh interior look or a cozy interior feel, our team delivers excellence. Ready for a change? Visit GoWithBrad.com today and let us help you create the perfect space. Brad Stoner Painting, where your home matters.
You'll be glad when you go with Brad. GoWithBrad.com.
Get ready for a grand slam of healthcare. Palomar Health is bringing healthcare into the future using innovative technologies for better patient outcomes because winning means your health. Palomar Health Champions of Healthcare. champions for you. Visit palomarhealth.org to find a doctor.
Jake and Christine knew they needed help renovating their dream home. As a Pella advisor, I make sure every step of getting new windows and doors is smooth, including setting you up with our Pella Care Guarantee. It covers everything from product to installation, with some of the strongest warranties in the industry.
No interest if paid in full within 12 months. Other financing options available. Offer ends May 31st, 2024. Visit PellaSanDiego.com.
Welcome back to the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show on the Padres Radio Network. Your water perfected. EcoWater SoCal. Your water should be perfect. Find them online at EcoWaterSoCal.com. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios as we get ready for first pitch coming up at 4:40 here in America's finest city. Game 2 of this 3-game series at Wrigley Field in Chicago. Let's hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt before today's game.
Let's pull up a seat in the manager's office and hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. Presented by Sinley Food. Spice up your culinary life.
Before we hear from Mike Shildt, just a quick look at the Padres lineup here today. Jurickson Profar in left field leading off. Fernando Tatis Jr. in right batting second. Jake Cronenworth at first base batting third. Manny Machado back in the lineup today, DHing batting cleanup. Xander Bogaerts at second base batting fifth. Donovan Solano, a couple of hits in his Padres debut last night, playing third base in the sixth spot. Ha-Sung Kim at shortstop batting eighth. Jose Azocar in center field batting eighth. I think I said Kim was batting eighth. Kim batting seventh, Azocar batting eighth, and Kyle Higashioka doing the catching, batting ninth, with again right-hander Randy Vasquez on the mound for the Padres here tonight in Game 2 of this 3-game series. The notable absentees, would that be the right word? Notable absentees in the Padres lineup today would be Luis Arraez, he's getting a day off, and Jackson Merrill also getting a day off, and probably no coincidence that those two guys are getting the day off against the lefty Shota Imanaga on the mound for the Cubs today, who, like we've said a couple of times now, has been terrific so far this year in the very early part of his major league career. With all that in mind, let's hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt.
Start with the lineup. Looks like a day to get the lefties off of the tough lefty on the mound.
Yeah, so kind of a plan with Jackson, getting him a day off before the day game tomorrow, and what a great opportunity and challenge to be able to Solano, Manny, Arraez, Bogey, Crony. So today we just thought, okay, been kind of a whirlwind for Louis and give him the start off as with Jackson, and we'll see how the game unfolds.
Speaking of Imanaga, pretty tough. I mean, the numbers have been pretty impressive so far. What's the plan of attack? Looks like fastball, split finger combination mostly. Yeah,
that's what we're looking to expect, and just a matter of we have a plan. Now it's just a matter of the execution of what that looks like. So he's throwing the ball really well, and we got to make sure we do our part to change that around a little bit.
Randy Vasquez, seems like fastball command is key for him. It's key for anybody, but especially for him going into today's ballgame.
Yeah, I mean, he's all the weapons. I think all of us from spring training, even into the season, have been following and watching Randy pitch, recognize the talent, recognize the pitches, recognize this is starter quality stuff. Now it's just a matter of, like anything else in this game, the consistency of it, and typically it does, to your point, scan, and rightfully so, starts with fastball command, controlling counts.
Is it too soon to say how are you guys viewing that Musgrove spot in the rotation with Vasquez? Is it someone that start by start, or how do you kind of view that?
Yeah, I think we'll just evaluate today and kind of go from there. Take inventory how today goes, and then we're hopeful, but not going to push that. Joe, relative to the days off, misses. There's another start in his spot, and then after that he's got a chance to be back. So. It looks like a 2-start hiatus potentially, hopefully.
Is Louis sitting entirely because it's been a whirlwind and it's a drastic kind of thing with the lefty?
Yeah, I think that's a combination. It makes sense. Obviously he'll be back in there tomorrow, and he's an everyday guy for us. But just give him that day and then to turn around and but he can show up at another time in the game.
You mentioned challenge. I think you were saying for the right-handed hitters tonight. Is that what kind of you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, we get more righties in there relative to the lefty.
Do you think players take it as a challenge that, like, he's faced 6 teams or whatever, and no one's been able to figure him out? Like, they know that, right? Is it kind of like, do they get juiced a little bit?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, I think the competitive spirit comes out regardless every night, but now you look up and you go, all right, this guy's having a lot of success, and what's he doing? And then what are we going to do to combat it? And we get to be the team that, has the right approach and but also the execution to match it.
Not specifically asking because of Jackson. Last night he's a rookie. He's been picked off a couple of times, but you guys have been picked off at first a few more times than you probably like. But I imagine that falls in your bucket of we're aggressive, we get good leads. We don't like it, but we'll take it.
Yeah, we don't like it. I mean, it's case by case. It's like you want to be an aggressive team, and you preach that. There's going to be, it's not perfect. And base running like last night has clearly been a huge identity and won us a lot of games. So you're going to have a one-off that, it happens. Last night's was more of a, it's a full count with a rise at bat. So it's not trying to grab a bag. It's more about just starting the runner. And he got caught and we learned from it.
That was Padres manager Mike Schilt before today's game. We'll hear more from Mike coming up in our post-game show a little bit later on tonight after the Padres play the Cubs in Game 2 of this 3-game series. Now let's tell you who's hot, who's not.
Which player is locked in at the dish? Who needs to kick things up another notch? This is Who's Hot, Who's Not on the Padres Radio Network.
We begin with the hot category, number of Padres to focus on here. Let's begin with Jurickson Profar. In the midst of a 12-game on-base streak, hits in 11 of those games. Profar batting .444 with an 1179 OPS in the last 12 games. 3 home runs, 2 doubles, 10 RBIs in that span. You look at Profar's overall numbers this year, .341 batting average, 7th in the majors this year, .425 on base percentage, 3rd in the major leagues, and .949 OPS, ranks 8th in the major leagues. He continues to be terrific. Luis Arraez not in the starting lineup tonight, but still in the midst of a 14-game on-base streak, hitting .349 in that span with 5 doubles and 10 runs scored. Jake Cronenworth, a 10-game hitting streak coming in that span. He's batting .357 with a 1068 OPS, 5 doubles, 3 home runs, 10 RBIs in a 10-game hitting streak. In the not category, we focus today on a couple of guys at the very bottom of the Cubs lineup. Pete Crow Armstrong, just 3 for his last 24. He's batting 9th today for the Cubs. And Miguel Amaya doing the catching today for Chicago. He's just 2 for his last 30. So we'll see if the Padres can take advantage of a couple of struggling hitters at the very bottom of the Cubs lineup. And that's a look at who's hot, who's not, as we get ready for first pitch coming up at 4:40. When we come back, I'm joined by Lance Brodzowski, who does a great job covering the Cubs, covering the minor leagues, for Marquee Sports Network, the Cubs TV network, and he is, in my opinion, one of the really bright minds talking about baseball and pitching in particular right now. We will have a full breakdown of this Cubs left-hander, Shota Imanaga, and much more with Lance Brodzowski when we come back. Plus, we'll have our keys to the game and much, much more to come. If you want to get your keys to the game in, you can tweet them at me at Sammy Lev, SAMMYLEV. Instagram DMs open as well. Sammy Lev there too, SAMMYLEV. Let me know what your key to today's game is. I may just read it here on the air. And if you want to comment with your key on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, on the video streams, you can do that as well. I might just pick up some of your comments and read them a little bit later. First pitch at 4:40 here on the Padres Radio Network.
Hey guys, it's your old pal
Our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show continues here on the Padres Radio Network as we get ready for today's game between the Padres and the Chicago Cubs. Sam Levitt with you here inside our San Diego studios, and it's not often we do a real deep dive on the other team's starting pitcher, but I feel like today is the day to do it, really for two reasons. The Padres facing left-hander Shota Imanaga for the very first time. He has been absolutely terrific so far in the major leagues and with the Cubs. And I have a guy on the phone right now that is, in my mind, one of the best guys talking pitching in baseball right now. It's Lance Brozdowski, player development analyst from Marquee Sports Network, the Cubs TV network. Lance, appreciate you joining me. How's Chicago?
Sam, it's good. It's probably not as nice as San Diego, unfortunately, but we're getting there. The summer's usually pretty good in Chicago, so we're close.
Yeah, summertime Chicago, always a really good time. Let's talk about Shota Imanaga. The numbers outstanding, 0.78 ERA in the early part of his major league career. Let's start with the wide lens, Lance, if you will. What is making this guy so good?
Yeah, it comes down to the fastball for me. It's just a really odd look, and I think, when I think of like fastball quality, I think you can break it down in a couple ways. You can think of velocity as they throw hard. You can think of movement, is it moving a lot horizontally or vertically? You can think of command. But I think with Shota, the thing that jumps out is kind of all of those, but the fact that it's coming from a release point that's just substantially lower than average. So, he's able to carry the ball really well. And generally, when you can carry the ball really well, you have a higher slot because that allows you to kind of get backspin on the ball. Think of a guy like Justin Verlander. That's a really high release, and he's probably one of the preeminent, backspin fastball guys. With Shota, he's doing that, but because he's a little shorter and he doesn't extend a lot down the mound, his release height compared to Verlander's is a foot and a half a difference. So what happens, I think, from a visual standpoint for the hitter is that it's riding more than they expect, so it's not dropping as much, and it's doing that from a perspective, a lefty low slot that they just don't see a lot. And as a byproduct of that, the Cubs here adjusted his location. If you looked at MPB data, he was pitching a lot more down in the zone with this particular four seam. The Cubs were just that needs to be up. This pitch will kill if it's up in the zone. And they've proven to be right on that. I think that's really the main point. It's just there's not a lot of people to comp him to. It creates a weird look for hitters. He throws that fastball a lot first time through, and then second and third time through. Once hitters get a read on it, he really kind of mixes in curveball. He started throwing a sinker. He's got a nasty splitter too. It's a really nice combination of a couple things that I really think have just stunned hitters.
Lance, I want to talk to you more about that splitter because I was reading about Imanaga, watching some video, and to your point, it seems like the rise on that fastball is part of the reason he's been so good. But the splitter, also another pitch that he throws a lot. What is special about that splitter right now, the way he's using it?
Man, splitters are such a weird pitch generally. I thought before this season, and this came from talking to a lot of people who are smarter than me in the baseball space, was just I thought we'd have some bit of a splitter revolution. Splitters have historically been the best pitch in baseball at limiting barrels, generating swing and miss, and they're also out of the zone a lot, which doesn't really make much sense, for the fact of how much they generate swings. They actually, I think, generate the most swings of any pitch type in baseball, which is kind of crazy to wrap your head around, given that they're out of zone a lot. So you have this idea that they're really good pitches generally. His in particular, I think, works because of the fastball. I think it's a good pitch. I think the fastball is exceptional, plus. And as a byproduct of that, you have to tune up for the four seam. It's just that the split is just confusing. And I got to admit, I've talked to a lot of pitchers and pitching coaches about why splitters are so effective despite the fact that they're spinning at such a lower rate. In my mind, I've always assumed that hitters would just be able to pick it up. But it doesn't seem like anyone can. A lot of the splitter stats we have, even with a small increase in usage across the league, haven't really budged. They're still dominant pitches overall. And, Shota's just mixing it really well. There's also not a lot of guys who throw lefty splitters. The only other one I could think of, and it's misclassified, is Shane McClanahan, who's currently injured. He actually throws a splitter, but it's classified as a changeup. So you just don't see this a lot. Again, I was talking about the fastball, not seeing that ride from that slot a lot. You also just don't see lefty splitters a lot. And he locates everything well. The fastball's up, the splitter's down, and you're really playing a game of coin flip every single time you want to take a swing as a hitter. And it's just messed guys up.
Really great breakdown of tonight's starting pitcher for the Cubs, Shota Imanaga, by, again, Lance Brozdowski, joining us, the player development analyst for the Marquee Sports Network. Great stuff on the pitching, Lance. I do want to ask you about one of the guys in the lineup tonight for the Cubs, and that is Christopher Morel, who continues to hit a lot of home runs. Hit one out yesterday, hit a big grand slam against the Padres earlier this season. How would you sort of sum up the season for Morel so far and the player he's becoming with the Cubs?
Yeah, I mean, his season's been kind of a roller coaster, I would argue. Like, he started incredibly hot, and then he had a stretch where he wasn't doing anything. Like, if you look at a rolling chart of his performance, it's really like a peak and a huge valley, and now he's up to another peak. I think that's been the MO of his career so far. Again, he's a really young hitter. I expect over time for that to even out, but he also just might be a relatively high variance player. Overall, if you look at those two peaks in the valley and combine them together and compare it to what he was doing last year, the big thing is that I think he's just understanding the zone more, swinging more in zone, chasing less out of zone. What happened a lot last year was guys would throw sliders off the plate and he would chase. Pretty basic concept against a guy who's a pretty aggressive hitter, right? Just spin it off the plate. This year, what we're seeing is that guys are doing that, but he's not chasing it as much. And he's also an odd hitter because he hits spin really well. So if you have to throw the slider that you think might be the most effective pitch versus him in the zone more, he's able to cover that pitch in the zone. So then he runs into a situation where it's like, okay, now we're going to start throwing more flat fastballs to him. So the Mets threw him a lot of sinkers inside, some forcing him up, and he was able to kind of get back off his schneid by pushing against those pitches and being able to kind of fire and actually do damage. So now you run into a weirder situation as a pitcher where it's like, okay, this guy covers fastball up. He's not that great versus slider off the plate, but he's not swinging at them. But if I leave that slider on the plate for a strike, he can cover that. So I just struggle with like how you pitch to him. And we've seen the strikeout rate drop about 10 percentage points, the walk rate's up. He's becoming like a force offensively, I think, which I thought this would happen over time, you know, with a guy this young, but I didn't think it would happen in one calendar year, so to speak. Like, he hasn't played a full season in the majors yet. We're already seeing these adjustments. So if this sustains over the course of the season, he becomes, I think, probably the best bat in the lineup, which I don't think coming into the season anybody really thought would be the case.
We'll see how the Padres handle Morel here tonight and throughout the rest of this series. Again, we're joined by Lance Brozdowski, player development analyst for the Marquee Sports Network. Does a terrific job, a great guy to follow on Twitter as well. If you're a fan of baseball, a fan of good pitching, Lance, I'm serious, one of the bright minds talking pitching right now, really throughout the country. You can follow Lance on Twitter at Lance Bros, LANCE, and then BROZ. Give him a follow on Twitter if you want to get some good baseball stuff. Lance, appreciate the time, my friend. This was a really good breakdown of Imanaga and Christopher Morel, and hope you enjoy the game here tonight.
Thanks a ton for having me, Sam.
Who's in? Who's out? This is the Bada Fulkerson Injury Report, presented by San Diego's Bulldog Injury Attorneys, who hope you're never in an accident. But if you are, make Bada Fulkerson the first call you make. Hit them up 24/7 at BadaFulkerson.com.
A lot to get to on our injury report here today. Let's start with the Cubs because they had a number of moves earlier today. Cody Bellinger was activated from the 10-day IL. He's back in the lineup for the Cubs today. Keegan Thompson, a reliever, recalled from AAA Iowa. The corresponding moves: Daniel Palencia, a reliever, appeared in last night's game, placed on the 15-day IL with a right shoulder strain. And the Cubs also optioning outfielder Alexander Canario back to AAA Iowa. So Bellinger back in the lineup today for the Cubs. Padres president of baseball operations and general manager A.J. Preller was on Ben and Woods this morning. Here was A.J. on the status of Joe Musgrove.
You know, from his standpoint, you know, some tricep tendonitis and you know, I think it's I guess posterior elbow, you know, joint. I think it's honestly though being more cautious. We did this with Darvish a few weeks ago, and I think again it's been more towards eye on the long haul and the long season. So you know, we take it serious anytime somebody's on 100%. But I think it's more in that bucket. At least this specific case with Joe is, hey, give him a couple days and just be smart for the season, because we're gonna need Joe for this year if we're gonna be successful, and you know, him and Darvish, you know, making sure that they're, you know, pitching in a spot where, you know, they're the best versions of themselves, and also gives some other guys opportunity. So, again, with this one, it's more towards, you never know from the injury standpoint, but it's more geared towards, use your time on the IL, get close to that 100% level and hopefully be back here in a couple of weeks against Atlanta.
That was the update on Joe Musgrove earlier today from A.J. Preller, and that's a look at our injury report on it this Tuesday as we get ready for Game 2 of this 3-game series. Now let's take a look at the out-of-town scoreboard.
Let's take a trip around the Bigs and tell you about the scores you need to know in our out-of-town scoreboard. Presented by Jensen Meat, where great taste meets integrity.
We have one final today. A lot of games going on right now across the major leagues. Rangers beat the A's in Oakland 15-8. Rangers erupting for a 10-run second inning in that one. Other games going on right now. Tigers and the Guardians tied at 7, third inning in Cleveland. Diamondbacks and the Reds are scoreless in Cincinnati in the third. Phillies 3, Blue Jays nothing in the second in Philadelphia. Nationals head of the Orioles 1-0 in the second in D.C. White Sox and the Rays are scoreless in Tampa in the second. Angels and the Pirates are scoreless in the second in Pittsburgh. Astros 1, Yankees nothing in the first inning in New York. Game still yet to begin. Mets and the Cardinals in St. Louis at 4:45. Red Sox in Atlanta at 4:20. Brewers in Kansas City at 4:40. Mariners in Minnesota at 4:40. Giants at the Rockies at 5:40 in Colorado. Marlins in L.A. taking on the Dodgers at 7:10. And that's a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard on this Tuesday. Now let's give you our keys to the game.
How will the Padres unlock a victory in today's game? These are the keys to the game. Presented by Honor Buick GMC Hummer in National City.
A couple of quick keys for you. Key number 1, the Padres offense needs to keep on rolling on this road trip. In 4 games on this trip, Padres are hitting .338 as a team, 13 doubles, 19 extra base hits total, 29 RBIs, and 30 runs scored in the last 4 games. Padres continue to be really good offensively on the road. .289 team batting average on the road, best in the majors this year. They've scored a major league leading 5.72 runs per game on the road. Yesterday it all came in 1 inning in a span of 7 batters, but you know what? You'll take it. 6 runs, you'll take that on most nights. Keep this offense rolling. That's key number 1. Key number 2, you need at least a little bit of length out of Randy Vasquez, and here's why. Yesterday, the Padres had to use 5 relievers: Matsui, De Los Santos, Peralta, Estrada, Suarez for 5 outs. Day before that, Brito, Kolick, Peralta all appeared. So the Padres using 8 relievers in the last couple of days need a little length out of Randy Vasquez. The bullpen is not super fresh here today. We'll see if Vasquez can pitch into the 4th, 5th, maybe even the 6th inning, be effective. A big key in today's game is Randy Vasquez having a nice start, and we'll see if he can do that, and we'll see if the Padres can follow today's keys to the game. When we come back here on the Padres Radio Network, we'll take a deep dive into our pitching matchup here today, including more on Cubs left-hander Shota Imanaga making his first ever start against the Padres, with first pitch coming up at 4:40. Our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show continues after this on the Padres Radio Network.
Stay tuned.
Our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios. First pitch coming up at 4:40 in Chicago. Padres going for a second straight win against the Cubs. We'll take a deeper look into our pitching matchup in just a moment, but before we do that,
what's the one thing Sam Levitt will be keeping his eye on in today's game? This is What to Watch For. Presented by Genesis Home Improvements, San Diego's trusted painting, roofing, and window company. Save 15% today on a new beginning for your home. Visit GenesisHomeImprovementsSD.com.
What to watch for in today's game. How did the Padres handle Christopher Morel? He's hit a home run in 4 of the past 5 games. He's reached base safely in 11 of his last 22 plate appearances, 9 RBIs in that span. Hit a 2-run home run against the Padres yesterday. Can they slow him down? Can they handle him? Can they prevent him from hitting a home run? It's what to watch for in today's game. What kind of impact does Morel have? Can the Padres slow him down? Now let's dive into our pitching matchup between Shota Imanaga and Randy Vasquez.
Let's take a look at who's on the bump today with our starting pitching preview on the Padres Radio Network.
Let's begin with right-hander Randy Vasquez. 2 starts in the major league so far this season. April 20th against the Blue Jays, 5 innings, 1 earned run given up. April 25th in Colorado, 2 2/3 innings, 4 earned runs allowed. He last pitched on Thursday for AAA El Paso, went 3 2/3 innings, gave up 4 runs. This will be Vasquez's first outing against the Cubs and at Wrigley Field. The arsenal for Vasquez: 4-seam fastball, a sweeper, a curveball, a sinker, then the cutter, the changeup as well. Meanwhile, on the mound for the Cubs, left-hander Shota Imanaga, 30 years old, in the midst of his first major league season after being signed by the Cubs from Japan. He has been marvelous so far. 5-0, an 0.78 ERA in 6 starts. He went 7 scoreless innings against the Mets his last time out, gave up just 3 hits. The arsenal for Imanaga: 4-seam fastball and a splitter primarily, throws those 2 pitches more than 80% of the time combined. Also mixes in the sweeper and the curveball. Let's dive into Imanaga even more. Cubs are 6-0 in his starts so far this year. To put in context how good this guy has been so far, only 3 pitchers have ever had a lower ERA in their first 6 career starts than Imanaga, having an 0.78 ERA right now. The 4-seam fastball, it's been a big weapon for him. Opponents are hitting just 137 against that 4-seamer. The fascinating part about that heater is that he only throws at an average of 92 miles an hour, but it has a rising movement that makes it play better. His splitter is also really good. We'll see if the Padres can, at the very least, make Imanaga work here today. And that's a look at our starting pitching matchup between Randy Vasquez and Shota Imanaga. You've been listening to the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show on the Padres Radio Network. EcoWater SoCal, your water should be perfect. Find them online at EcoWaterSoCal.com. Padres have won 5 of their last 6 games. They come in an even record of 19-19. We'll see if the Padres can move above 500 here tonight in Chicago. When we come back, Jesse Agler, Tony Gwynn Jr. are at Wrigley Field on the north side of Chicago. They have the starting lineups, first pitch, and then all the play-by-play. I'll talk to you on our post-game show. You're listening to your home for San Diego Padres baseball, 97.3 The Fan and the Padres Radio Network. Enjoy the game, everybody.
Make your family cheer with Jensen's all-natural real beef patties. Tender, juicy, and full of flavor. They're the MVP whether grilling outdoors or cooking indoors. Find them in the frozen